First contact in crisis. The crystalline spires of Luminara City pulsed with a soft azure glow beneath the endless ocean of Aquarius Prime. Through the transparent walls of the Central Research Institute, Chief Scientist Vara watched streams of bubbles rise from the thermal vents that powered their civilization. Her bioluminescent patterns flickered with concern as she studied the latest readings from the planetary core sensors. "Director Nalith needs to see this immediately," she whispered, her fins trembling slightly. The data couldn't be clearer. The planet's core was becoming dangerously unstable. The delicate balance of pressure and temperature that had sustained the Lumini's underwater civilization for millennia was beginning to falter. Within hours, the Council of Elders convened in the Grand Sphere, their elongated bodies arranged in the traditional circle of discourse. The eldest members' scales had faded to an almost translucent white, their wisdom earned through centuries of guiding their people through the challenges of their aquatic world. "The evidence is undeniable." Vara projected her thoughts to the assembled council, her neural patterns carrying both information and emotion. "The core's pressure is increasing beyond sustainable levels. Our preliminary models suggest we have less than a stellar cycle before the changes become irreversible." Director Nalith, his silver scales reflecting the bioluminescent lights of the chamber, moved forward. "What solutions have we developed?" "We've attempted to redirect the pressure through our network of thermal channels," Vara responded, creating a holographic display of their efforts using suspended particles in the water. "But our technology isn't powerful enough to handle the magnitude of force we're dealing with. We need—" She hesitated, knowing her next words would spark controversy. "We need help from beyond our world." A ripple of agitation passed through the assembly, causing the water around them to swirl with their collective anxiety. The Lumini had encountered other spacefaring races before, but they had always been careful to maintain their isolation. Their planet's high pressure and unique environment had served as a natural barrier, keeping them safe from the conflicts that occasionally erupted in the galaxy around them. The Consortium of Aligned Worlds has offered assistance before, one elder suggested, his patterns glowing a cautious yellow. Vara's fins flexed in frustration. "Their technology isn't suited for our depths. We need something more robust." She pushed a new set of data into the shared consciousness. "We need the Deathworlders." The chamber erupted in a cascade of flashing colors and agitated movements. The humans were known throughout the galaxy as creatures of extraordinary durability, evolved on a world that most species considered barely habitable. Their technology, like themselves, was built to withstand extreme conditions. "They're dangerous," warned Elder Kosh, his patterns flashing warning red. "Their history is filled with conflict. Their very presence could destroy our way of life. Our way of life will be destroyed regardless if we do nothing," Vara countered, her own patterns intensifying with conviction. "The humans have experience with deep-sea operations on their own world. They've developed technologies specifically for high-pressure environments. More importantly, they have a history of helping other species, even at great risk to themselves." Director Nalith moved to the center of the sphere, commanding attention. "Show us the projected timeline without intervention." The holographic display shifted, showing their beautiful world transforming into a chaos of volcanic eruptions and crushing pressure waves. The simulation ended with their cities in ruins, their population forced to abandon the deep waters that had been their home since the dawn of their civilization. "And with human assistance?" Nalith asked quietly. Vara projected another simulation, this one less certain but showing possible stability. "Their engineering capabilities exceed anything we've seen from other spacefaring races. They understand pressure, force, and adaptation in ways that match our needs." The council deliberated for what felt like an eternity to Vara. She could sense their fear, not just of the humans, but of change itself. The Lumini had built their civilization on harmony and careful progress. The idea of inviting creatures known for their aggressive problem-solving and powerful technology went against everything they had believed in. Finally, Director Nalith spoke again. "We face extinction if we do nothing. Our ancestors survived the Great Migration by adapting. Perhaps his patterns shifted to a deep blue of contemplation. Perhaps it is time for us to adapt again. The decision was made. Within days, the Lumini sent their first-ever distress signal into space, specifically directed toward Earth. The message was carefully crafted, explaining their situation and requesting assistance, while emphasizing their peaceful intentions and technological achievements. As the signal traveled through space, Vara returned to her research station, watching the core pressure readings continue their relentless rise. She wondered what these humans would really be like. Stories spoke of their strength, their endurance, their ability to survive in environments that would kill most species. But what the stories didn't tell was whether they could work alongside a species so different from themselves. The response came faster than anyone expected. A human vessel, the DSV Challenger, was already operating in a relatively nearby sector. They would arrive within 14 cycles. As Vara helped prepare for their arrival, she studied everything they had on human physiology and technology. Their bodies were dense, solid things, evolved to withstand the crushing gravity of their homeworld. Their technology seemed almost crude compared to the Lumini's elegant pressure manipulation systems, all heavy metal and reinforced ceramics. But there was an undeniable effectiveness to their designs, a pragmatic approach to problem solving that the Lumini had never considered. The humans would arrive soon, and with them would come change. Whether that change would save or destroy their world remained to be seen. But as Vara watched another pressure warning flash across her monitors, she knew they had made the only choice they could. Sometimes survival meant taking risks, and right now, the greatest risk would be doing nothing at all. The Engineering Challenge. The DSV Challenger emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Aquarius system, its reinforced hull gleaming under the light of the binary stars. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching the azure planet grow larger on the main display. Unlike most alien worlds humans had encountered, this one was almost entirely ocean, a sphere of deep blue wrapped in swirling white clouds. Final pressure readings confirmed, reported Dr. James Rodriguez, the mission's chief engineer. Their deepest cities are operating at pressures that would crush most civilian submarines. No wonder they called us. He whistled softly, reviewing the data the Lumini had sent. Their whole technology base is built around manipulating water pressure. It's brilliant, actually, using the very force that would destroy most civilizations as their power source. Sarah nodded, her expression thoughtful. She had chosen her team carefully for this mission, not just the best deep-sea engineers Earth could offer, but people who could adapt to the unexpected. They would need both skills in the coming days. "What about our equipment?" she asked, turning to Diana Walsh, their operations specialist. "The new pressure suits are ready," Diana replied, pulling up schematics on her tablet. "Rated for twice the depth we're expecting. We've also modified our tools to work in their environment. Though honestly, Captain, I'm not sure how well they'll interface with Lumini tech. Their entire approach to engineering is different." The Challenger carried specially designed pods for working in extreme depths, along with a suite of tools that represented the best of human deep-sea engineering. But as they began their descent into Aquarius Prime's atmosphere, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover just how unprepared they really were. Their first sight of Luminara City left the crew speechless. The Lumini hadn't built their civilization to resist the ocean's pressure. They had built it to work with it. Massive tubes of crystalline material channeled water currents through the city like arteries, each one pulsing with bioluminescent light. Buildings seemed to grow from the seabed rather than being constructed upon it, their structures flowing with the ocean currents rather than standing rigid against them. Vara waited in the adaptation chamber, a specially modified dock where the human vessel could safely interface with their city. Her patterns flickered rapidly as she watched the massive metal ship approach. It looked so alien to her eyes, all angles and reinforced plates, where Lumini vessels were smooth and organic. The docking procedure was tense. Human technology had to be precisely calibrated to handle the pressure transition. One mistake could be catastrophic for both species, but years of experience in Earth's deep oceans paid off, and soon the first human delegation was walking through the pressure locks. Vara had studied human physiology, but nothing had prepared her for seeing them in person. They moved with a purposeful weight that seemed impossible in water, their reinforced suits making them look even more solid and immovable. When Captain Chen removed her helmet in the adapted atmosphere of the chamber, Vara was struck by the intensity of her gaze. There was an alertness, a readiness for action that the Lumini rarely displayed. "Thank you for coming," Vara projected, her thoughts translated by the communication systems they had hastily adapted for human use. "We have little time." Sarah nodded, her movements carefully controlled in the unusual environment. "We've reviewed your data. The situation is serious, but we've dealt with similar challenges in Earth's oceans. Show us what you've tried so far." The next few hours were a crash course in the vast differences between human and Lumini engineering. Where humans built machines to generate and contain force, the Lumini had developed ways to channel and redirect the natural forces around them. Their cities weren't conquered territory in the deep, they were part of it. "This is the main pressure regulation system," Vara explained, leading them through passages that seemed to shift and pulse with the ocean currents. She gestured to a vast network of crystalline tubes that spiraled out from the city's center. "It usually maintains equilibrium, but with the core destabilizing. The whole system's getting overwhelmed," James finished, his engineer's mind already racing with possibilities. "We need to reinforce these channels, add auxiliary systems to handle the excess pressure." Vara's patterns darkened with concern. "Our materials can't withstand the additional stress. We've tried strengthening them, but..." "Then we use ours," Diana interrupted, already pulling up designs on her tablet. "We can create a hybrid system. Use your crystal tech to direct the pressure, but reinforce it with our materials to handle the load." The Lumini engineers present flickered with uncertainty. The idea of combining their elegant pressure manipulation systems with crude human reinforcement seemed almost sacrilegious. But as another tremor shook the city, sending ripples through the water around them, they knew they had to try something new. Sarah watched the exchange with growing concern. She had expected technical challenges, but the cultural divide was proving to be an even bigger obstacle. The Lumini's entire civilization was built around working in harmony with their environment. The human approach of forcefully controlling nature went against everything they believed in. "We need to find middle ground," she said finally. "Your understanding of pressure dynamics and our experience with reinforcement engineering. Neither approach alone will save your world, but together." She let the thought hang in the water between them. Vara's patterns shifted to a deep blue of consideration. The humans were different, their movements too sudden, their solutions too forceful. But as she watched them begin to work, setting up equipment with practiced efficiency, she saw something else too. They had a drive to solve problems, to face challenges head-on that her people had lost somewhere in their long history of peaceful existence. The question was whether both species could adapt fast enough. Another tremor shook the city, stronger this time, and warning signals flashed through the Lumini's neural network. The clock was ticking, and the real challenge was only beginning. Breaking point. 3 days into the operation, the first major crisis struck. The engineering team had been working around the clock, installing reinforcement systems throughout Luminera City's pressure regulation network. Human and Lumini engineers worked side by side, though not always in harmony. The humans' rapid pace and direct approach often clashed with the Lumini's more methodical, cautious methods. James Rodriguez wiped sweat from his brow inside his pressure suit as he supervised the installation of another reinforcement node. The human equipment looked jarringly out of place among the organic curves of Lumini architecture, all sharp angles and metallic surfaces against flowing crystal and living rock. "Primary node is secure," he reported through the comm system. "Beginning power-up sequence." Vara hovered nearby, her patterns showing increasing distress at each modification to her city's systems. The pressure variations are becoming more erratic, she projected. The core's instability is accelerating faster than our models predicted. Before James could respond, a deep rumble shook the entire structure. Warning signals flashed through the Lumini's neural network, their bioluminescent patterns turning brilliant red with alarm. The reinforcement node's status display suddenly switched to critical. "We got a problem," James shouted, his fingers flying over the control panel. "The pressure spike is exceeding our safety margins. The node can't handle this level of force." Diana's voice crackled over the comm. "Similar readings at nodes 3 and 7. The whole network is starting to buckle." Captain Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "All teams, fall back to safe zones. Now." But the Lumini engineers were already moving forward, their bodies gliding through the water with newfound urgency. Vara led them, her patterns pulsing with determination. "We can stabilize it using the auxiliary pressure channels," she projected. "But we need to act fast." James watched in amazement as the Lumini began manipulating their crystal technology in ways he hadn't seen before. Their movements were perfectly synchronized, creating complex patterns in the water that somehow affected the pressure flows around them. It was like watching a dance that could control the forces of nature. "What do you need from us?" he asked, pushing aside his engineer's instinct to take control of the situation. "Your reinforcement nodes. Can they channel power as well as contain it?" Vara asked, never pausing in her complex movements. "Yes, but..." "Then help us redirect the pressure. Don't try to stop it. Help us guide it." Sarah quickly grasped what the Lumini were attempting. "All teams, reconfigure the nodes. Switch from containment to flow-through. Follow the Lumini's lead." The next few minutes were a blur of desperate activity. Human engineering merged with Lumini pressure manipulation in ways neither species had imagined possible. The reinforcement nodes, originally designed to block and contain excess pressure, were quickly modified to become conduits, working with the Lumini's crystal channels to create new pathways for the devastating forces threatening to tear the city apart. James watched his readings in disbelief as the pressure levels gradually began to stabilize. The Lumini's method wasn't stopping the destructive force, it was redirecting it, using it to strengthen rather than weaken their systems. It went against everything he had learned about structural engineering, but it was working. The immediate crisis passed, but it left both species shaken. In the Emergency Response Center, Sarah faced the Lumini Council with grim determination. "We need to rethink our entire approach," she said. "Our traditional methods aren't going to be enough." Director Nalith's patterns showed both concern and curiosity. The human reinforcements proved inadequate. "Not inadequate," Vara interjected, surprising everyone with her directness. "Just incomplete. We saw something during the crisis. The human strength combined with our control. It created something new." Sarah nodded. "Your people don't just survive in these pressures, you work with them. We've been trying to impose our solutions on your world, but we need to learn from you instead." James stepped forward, still dripping from his time in the water. "The crisis showed us something else too. The pressure spikes aren't random. There's a pattern to them, but it's not one our instruments are designed to detect. The Lumini can sense it though, can't you?" Vara's patterns shifted to a deep purple of confirmation. "We feel the rhythms of our world. The pressure flows like music through our cities. The core's disruption. It's like a discord in that music." "Then we need to change our tune," Sarah said, a plan already forming in her mind. "Dr. Rodriguez, how quickly can we modify our remaining equipment to work with their pressure manipulation systems instead of against them?" "It won't be easy," James warned. "We'll have to rebuild almost everything. Our tools aren't designed to be this flexible, but it can be done." He looked at the Lumini engineers, saw their patterns flickering with what he had learned to recognize as hope. "Yes, with their help, it can be done." The next few hours were filled with intense planning sessions as humans and Lumini worked to combine their technologies in new ways. The crisis had forced both species to recognize the limitations of their individual approaches and the potential of working together. But even as they planned, more tremors shook the city. The core's instability was growing worse, and they were running out of time. Their new approach would have to work, because there would be no second chances. The fate of an entire civilization hung in the balance, and the only way forward was together. She looked around the room, seeing not two separate species anymore, but a single team united by a common purpose. The humans' determination and the Lumini's harmony with their environment had created something unprecedented, a true fusion of approaches that could save a world. The deployment would begin at dawn. As the teams made their final preparations, there was a sense of both tension and hope in the water. They had pushed the boundaries of both their technologies and their understanding of each other. Now it was time to put that growth to the ultimate test. Legacy of cooperation. Dawn on Aquarius Prime painted the ocean depths in shades of luminescent blue as the deployment teams took their positions around the planet. Each team consisted of both humans and Lumini, their hybrid pressure suits allowing them to work together at depths that would have been impossible just weeks ago. Captain Sarah Chen monitored operations from the Modified Control Center in Luminera City, where human holographic displays merged with Lumini neural interfaces to give her a complete view of the situation. Vara floated beside her, her pattern steady with focused determination. Team 1, in position. James reported from the abyssal plane. His voice came through clearly despite the crushing depth, carried by a combination of human communications technology and Lumini pressure waves. Team 2, ready. Diana confirmed from her location near the southern thermal vents. One by one, the teams reported in. 12 groups spread across the planet's ocean floor, each carrying one of their precious hybrid devices. The timing had to be perfect. The network would only function if all devices activated simultaneously, creating a harmonious web of controlled pressure throughout the planet's crust. Final core readings coming in. Vara projected, her patterns flickering with concern. The instability is reaching critical levels. Sarah nodded, her expression grim. All teams, begin final countdown. Remember your training. Work together. Trust each other. The deployment was unlike anything either species had attempted before. At each site, Lumini engineers used their natural sensitivity to guide the precise placement of the devices, while human team members handled the physical installation in the extreme conditions. The hybrid suits they wore allowed both species to complement each other's strengths, moving through the water with a combination of Lumini grace and human power. Network synchronization at 98%, Diana reported. Beginning power-up sequence. The devices hummed to life, their crystal cores glowing with an inner light that pulsed in rhythm with the planet's natural pressure waves. The metamaterial lattices around them began to shift and flex, adapting to the enormous forces at these depths. Energy patterns stabilizing. James called out. The crystal matrices are responding exactly as designed. For a moment, everything seemed to be working perfectly. Then, without warning, a massive tremor shook the ocean floor. Warning signals flashed across every display as the planet's core released a surge of pressure unlike anything they'd seen before. The network isn't fully operational yet, Vara projected urgently. This level of force, it could tear everything apart. Sarah watched the readings spike into critical levels. They needed more time for the network to fully activate, but the planet wasn't going to wait. Then she noticed something in the pressure patterns, a rhythm that seemed familiar. It's like the crisis in the city, she said suddenly. We don't fight it. We work with it. All teams, reconfigure your devices to channel mode. Let the pressure flow through the network. The human engineers quickly adjusted their equipment while the Lumini used their sensitivity to guide the pressure waves. The hybrid devices began to pulse more intensely, their crystals resonating with the planet's natural rhythms. Instead of trying to suppress the enormous forces being released, they channeled them, creating new pathways through the planet's crust. "It's working," James reported, his voice filled with awe. "The pressure is actually strengthening the network, just like in our prototypes." Across the planet, the hybrid devices created a web of controlled pressure flows, working with the planet's natural forces rather than against them. The core's instability, instead of destroying their work, became the very thing that powered it. Hours passed as the network stabilized. Teams maintained their positions, humans and Lumini working in perfect synchronization to monitor and adjust the system. Finally, Vara's patterns burst into brilliant colors of joy. "Core pressure is equalizing," she announced. "The network is self-sustaining. We did it." The control room erupted in celebration. Humans hugged each other while Lumini patterns flashed in dazzling displays of happiness. But beyond the immediate victory, everyone understood that they had achieved something even more significant. 1 month later, Sarah stood with Vara in the Grand Sphere, addressing the Council of Elders. The city had changed in subtle but meaningful ways. Human technology now integrated seamlessly with Lumini architecture, creating a harmony that would have seemed impossible before. "The core stabilization network continues to function perfectly," Sarah reported. "But its success has implications far beyond saving your world. What we've created here, this fusion of our technologies and philosophies, it opens up possibilities neither of our species imagined." Director Nalith's patterns showed deep satisfaction. Indeed, the human ability to confront and overcome obstacles, combined with our understanding of working in harmony with natural forces, it is a powerful combination. Vara moved forward. "We propose establishing a permanent joint research facility here in Luminara City, a place where both our species can continue to learn from each other." The Council's approval was unanimous. Within a year, the Aquarius Deep Sea Research Center became a reality. Human engineers came to study Lumini pressure manipulation techniques, while Lumini designers learned new ways to apply their understanding of natural forces. The hybrid technology they had developed to save the planet became the foundation for innovations that benefited both species. But perhaps the most profound change was in how each species viewed the other. The humans gained a deeper appreciation for working in harmony with nature rather than always trying to dominate it. The Lumini learned that strength and decisive action had their place alongside patience and careful observation. As Sarah prepared to return to Earth, leaving the first permanent human delegation behind, she took one last look at the city. Human reinforcement nodes now pulsed in perfect rhythm with Lumini crystal matrices. Deep-sea vessels combining the best of both species' technology moved through the waters. In saving this world, they had created something entirely new, a future where different approaches could combine to create something greater than the sum of its parts. "You're welcome back anytime, Captain," Vara projected, her patterns showing the deep friendship that had developed between them. "After all, we still have much to learn from each other." Sarah smiled, touching her hand to the water in the traditional Lumini farewell. "That's the greatest discovery we made here. There's always more to learn when we work together." As the Challenger broke orbit, carrying news of their success back to Earth, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The crisis had brought their species together, but it was their shared vision of the future that would keep them united. In the depths of Aquarius Prime, they had not just saved a world. They had changed 2 civilizations forever. The end.